Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode I want to take you through the art of screening, one of the most important skills you can learn as a competitive Warhammer player. In my experience, the lack of screening is one of the number one ways that players lose games, especially if they collect shooting factions such as the Imperial Guard. And so without further ado, let's mount up, roll out, and drive right into today's episode.
You there! Have you bought yourself a copy of Sharp's Command yet? Damn you, lads! Or use the affiliate link down below in the description to buy yourself a copy of the latest book in the best-selling series by Bernard Cornwell.
The fault was not mine, sir. Major Lennox must answer.
Major Lennox answer with his life! You disgraced us, sir! You shamed us, sir!
Sharp's Command is jam-packed full of action from start to finish. So what are you waiting for? Click on the affiliate link below and buy yourself a copy today. Support the channel and your king and country.
Yes, sir.
Now, rather than just telling you what screening is, I thought it might be useful to show you how screening works and to use a few examples to demonstrate the principle in action. And the first example we're going to go through is not having a screen. In the example that is before us, we have got a Leman Russ battle tank and we've got a unit of Genestealers. Now, don't worry about these specific units. When you see the Leman Russ, see a classic fire support unit, a main tank. That could apply to any faction. And when you see the Genestealers, think of some sort of fast-moving, hard-hitting assault unit. Now, as you can see in front of us, the Leman Russ is just sat there in front of the Genestealers. And so, when the Genestealers get their turn, there's nothing stopping them from simply moving up to the Leman Russ and then effectively charging it. Now, in this specific example, the Genestealers probably don't have the damage output to kill the Leman Russ. They are more of an anti-infantry unit, but they can absolutely tie it up in combat. So even though this unit isn't a threat to the Leman Russ in terms of destroying it, they have essentially taken it out for a turn. Because if the guard player decides to stay in combat with the Genestealers, then the firepower from this Leman Russ is going to be drastically reduced because it will be at -1 to hit. It will be able to shoot, but it's unlikely it's going to be able to shoot its way out of combat, and it may have well needed to shoot at a more valuable enemy target, but now it can't really do that because it's going to have the pressure of trying to clean these bugs away from its hull. And imagine these aren't Genestealers. Imagine this is some sort of screamer killer or big, horrible, vehicle-busting monster that the Tyranids have so many of. If this was a big tank cracker that could just charge in and destroy this Russ, then yeah, it wouldn't just be being tied up, it would be fully gone. So this is a good example of how if you don't screen your fire support units effectively, if you don't screen things like your Leman Russes, the ones that are going to be doing the vast majority of the damage for your army, then what you're going to find is they either get tied up by these little annoying swarms, or they get destroyed by things that are a genuine close combat threat to them. So how do we prevent these units that want to get into our tanks and get into our fire support units from destroying them or tying them up? Well, this is where screening comes in. And the most basic way of doing this is having a cheap disposable unit that you don't mind dying go in front of your high value asset. In our second example, you can see that we've got the Leman Russ, and then we've got a unit of 10 guardsmen, and then we have the Tyranids. Now in this situation, if the Tyranids want to get to the Leman Russ, they now have to go through the guardsmen. Now these guardsmen have been deployed in an extended line, making it impossible for the Genestealers to move around them. This is essentially move blocking those Genestealers. Now, when the Genestealers have to charge, they have to go into the guardsman screen first. Now let's be honest here, these brave, beautiful guardsmen don't really stand much chance against those Genestealers. they are going to get torn to pieces. But the important thing is that rather than a 170, 200 point, whatever it may be, big points intensive unit being tied up or taken out, instead we have lost a 55, 60 point unit of infantry. That is a really good trade for us. Now, there's an important thing to note when screening. You need to make sure that if you've got one of these disposable units, one that you think is going to die, that there is a sufficient gap between them and the unit they are screening. Now, as you can see, our guardsmen have been wiped out, but it's very important that the gap between the guardsman squad that was here and the Leman Russ is big enough to prevent the Tyranids from consolidating into engagement range. Because once this unit has been destroyed, the Tyranids, if they are within 4 inches of this Leman Russ, would be able to consolidate into it and tie it up. If that happens, then all we've done is thrown away a unit of guardsmen and we've not actually effectively screened. As you can see in this example, the guardsmen died. This is a much bigger than 4-inch gap. Therefore, the Tyranids can't consolidate, and as a result, they are stuck there out in the open. This is really good for us because it now means that when it comes over to our turn, our Leman Russ can just unload all of that firepower into these Tyranids, wiping them out. And now we have lost a 60 point unit of infantry for a very expensive unit of Genestealers. That is a good trade, and we have effectively screened. We have protected one of our assets, we've taken one of the enemies out, and we have done it in a way that benefits us in the points trade. Now, that is at its core the most straightforward explanation of screening. But what I want to do now is go a little bit deeper and talk about some advanced scenarios and screening tactics that you can also employ. Now, as you can see here, we've got our Leman Russ back and we've got our unit of Genestealers back. But rather than screening with a unit of Guardsmen, which we know are going to die, we've got some much more durable units up front. We've got a unit of Armored Sentinels and we've got a unit of Bulgrin. Bulgrin are a very, very popular, durable screening unit. And this is the other kind of screen. You can have the speed bump, aka the cheap Guardsman, or you can have the brick wall. This is a screen that is not designed to die. This is a screen that is designed to survive and hold your opponent in place. Now, there are a number of reasons why you might want to employ a brick wall over a speed bump. Firstly, you simply may not have the room to have that large 4-inch gap between the screening unit and the unit you're trying to protect. 40k boards are not as big as they once were. We've moved from a 6x4 down to a 60x44, and as a result, sometimes the space can be very, very tight, and leaving those large 4-inch gaps just aren't really possible. Also, you might be fighting over an objective. Maybe you've taken some ground and you actually want to hold that ground. Now, in that scenario, in both those scenarios, you want to have units that are going to be able to take a punch and survive. For example, let's place this token down here and say that that is an objective that we are fighting over. The Tyranids come flying into our units that we've got screening up front here. They come into the Sentinels and they come into the Bulgrin as well. Now, the Tyranids have come in, and let's say they've had a really good turn of combat. They've managed to kill one of the Sentinels. They've managed to kill one of the Bulgrin as well. But overall, the line has held. What we can do now, when it comes over to the guard turn, is we can fall back with our Sentinels. We can fall back with our Bulgrins. Maybe we fall back and away here to try and maintain the wall for another turn, because there might be another unit of Tyranids coming in later on. And we fall back just enough, and then our Leman Russ here can shoot into them, and once again we can take them out. Now, we may have lost in total a more viable unit here. I mean, at the time of recording, this Armored Sentinel is worth about 65, 70 points. This Bulgrin dude's worth about 30 points or so. So we have lost a little bit more points worth of stuff, but we have maintained control of our objective, which is worth it because that has got us victory points, and points are what win games. After speed bumps and brick walls, we have got the layered defense. This is a variant of the screen. It's kind of a combination of a screen and a brick wall in one. What you do is you take 2 units of low value squishy sacrificial troops and you put those in front of your high value asset, in this case the Leman Russ. Now the idea behind this is, once again, you may not have the luxury of having that big 4-inch gap. You may be trying to fight over an objective and you need to make sure that you've got as much objective control there. And at the end of the day, Guardsmen, whilst they are sacrificial, they are very OC intensive. They are very good at taking objectives. So what would happen in this scenario is the Tyranids would come in rather predictably. The first unit of Guardsmen would die, and the Tyranids would then be in range to be able to consolidate, but rather than consolidating into the high value Leman Russ like we saw in our first example, instead they hit that unit of Guardsmen. The Tyranids can't fight because they've already fought, and then the Guards would get a chance to do some attacks back, and then the best bit is that we've got all of this OC which is on the objective, and our Leman Russ is safe. And when it comes to our turn, we can just fall back a short way and we can again trade very effectively. Now in this scenario, we have lost 1 unit, and 1 unit has probably been taken out of the fight for a turn because it's going to have to fall back so it can't shoot. But the number of points that we've lost is pretty low. It's still a very, very good trade, and our Leman Russ again could do its thing and fire into those Tyranids and deal with them. So layered defenses are a great way of having a lot of objective control, not losing as many points, but they do have a bit of a disadvantage where you can find it where units do get taken out of the fight for a turn. But whereas the advantage the brick wall has is sometimes the brick wall doesn't need to fall back. If that, in our previous example, if that fight went really well for us and our Bulgrim was just bonking the Geniuses on the head, we just leave them in combat there and just let them finish the fight off on their own terms. The Leman Russ could shoot over the combat's head into things behind. So that's the difference between a brick wall and a layered defense, and the advantages and disadvantages that both of those approaches have. Now our next form of screening is the deterrence. This is where you discourage your opponent from even making a charge in the first place, and you do that by using a unit which is very good at Overwatch. So in this scenario, we have got our Leman Russ and we have got a Hellhound, and they are guarding this objective. Now we have got a unit of Gene Stealers who are hiding behind a wall. Now those Gene Stealers could easily move out, because we're not move blocking them. They could move out and then they could charge onto these vehicles, tie them up, and maybe even start threatening the OC of this objective, so out OCing these vehicles potentially. But this is a really difficult decision for the Tyranid player to make. It's not an easy call just to go charging out there, because if he moves out there, then our Hellhound, which automatically hits with its Inferno Cannon and its Heavy Flamer, will start burning all of these Gene Stealers. Now on average, like a Hellhound is going to get about 10.5, 11 shots from those flamers, because it rolls 3d6 in total. It's then going to wound the Gene Stealers in every case on 3s, and so you're probably going to end up with about 7 Gene Stealer wounds. The Gene Stealers have got like a 5-up save against that, so they'll stop maybe 2 or 3 of them. So they're going to lose about 4 or 5 of their number before they even get to charge in. And then when they charge in, they've got these 2 tanks to have to contend with, which between them have got a whole bunch of attacks, which may kill a couple more Gene Stealers. And then when it comes over to our turn, the Hellhound could just stay in combat, the Leman Russ can stay in combat, we can shoot the Hellhound first, burn the remaining Gene Stealers away, and then our Leman Russ is free to shoot with no problems whatsoever. So in that scenario, the Tyranids, if they do come out and charge, they're not going to tie us up, they're not going to take the objective away from us, they're not even going to reduce our firepower. All they're going to do is yeet a unit of Gene Stealers into us and give us a free kill. So for the Gene Stealer player, for the Tyranid player, this is a really difficult scenario, because they want to use their assault units. And if they don't use them, then it's just sat there behind a wall not doing anything, and it's not taking us away from this objective, it's not denying the guard any points. But if they send them out, they're probably all just going to die anyway. So having a good deterrence like this can be really, really good because it forces your opponent into dilemmas. And there's an old saying in it's not just in 40k but in life in general, you want to give your opponents dilemmas, not problems, because problems have solutions but dilemmas have no good choice. And by using the deterrence, you give your opponent a dilemma. Now we've got one more example of screening for assault armies versus shooting armies, and this is when you actually flip the whole scenario on its head and it's the infantry that is needing to be protected. Now you might be wondering, why would I want to protect my sacrificial infantry? Well, in some lists, specifically ones like Mechanized Guard, where you've got more vehicles than you have infantry and you need to husband your objective control, making sure that your infantry are safe is very, very important. And a good example of, it's kind of like, I would call it like mechanized screening, so maybe it's just protecting your objective control, but I still feel it fits within the parameters of this video, is using a dedicated transport. In the scenario that we have here, we have our assault unit, we have our transport, and we have our OC dense unit inside. If the Tyranids charge in to this transport, and let's say they destroy it, then it means that the infantry squad inside can pile out. Imagine there's a few more guys here, and what will happen is the transport will die, but the infantry are still alive on the objective. So sure, they're battle shocked when they come out of the transport in the opponent's turn, but it comes around to our command phase, that unit will not be below half strength unless you roll very, very poorly on disembark, and they should be there and be able to hold that objective. So that's a good example of how it's not always about infantry screening for vehicles and stuff like that. Sometimes the most important thing in your army can be your infantry, and they are the asset that needs to be protected. But it's not only shooting armies that need to be aware of screening. You do tend to find that it is shooting armies that do a lot of screening, but assault armies need to know this skill as well. Consider the following scenario. You have a unit of Gene Stealers and you have a unit of Black Templars being led by a character. Now, if these Black Templars get the charge off onto the Gene Stealers, then there's a real chance that they'll be able to do significant damage, if not wipe them out. But all the assault army needs to do is have a cheap screen in front, and that can be enough to really create a dilemma for the assault army over here. Because what will happen is they will charge in, and they'll probably just completely delete these termagants, right? Because, you know, termagants are pretty easy to kill. And then the assault army, if they want to, can pile in to the Gene Stealers, but all that's going to happen with these Black Templars are the Gene Stealers are going to fight and probably do a lot of damage to them in their own turn. Or the Black Templars just don't pile in, but guess what? Now we go over to Tyranid turn, and it's going to be the Tyranid's chance to do what they did. So assault army screening can actually be really, really important, because assault armies need to be able to not only get through the screens of shooting armies, or can be heavily countered by the screens of shooting armies, but also assault armies can really struggle into other assault armies if they don't have their own screening in place. Now, like with shooting armies, you can screen with the sacrificial unit, and that does have its advantages. Like we said, you don't really need to have that 4-inch gap like you do with the basic screening on shooting armies, because if the enemy piles into you, you get to do lots of attacks, which is good for you. But the other thing to mention is that sometimes you still have that brick wall option. So if you look at the example we've got here with the Black Templars, yes, we could screen with a cheap unit of termagants, or we could try and screen with a big monster. And in this case, the Black Templars will go in, and the big they might kill the big monster, might do a bit of damage to it, but let's say the big monster survives. Now the Black Templars can be countercharged, and one way or another, it's not looking like it's going to do not going to be a good time for the Sons of Sigismund. But that just about covers the various ways that you can effectively screen in Warhammer 40k. I will be doing a follow-up video to this one covering staging, which is a very different yet also important skill that you want as a Warhammer player. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If there's any things that you think that I've missed, please get them down there. And if you've got any questions, pop them down in the comment section. Either myself or someone else in the community will get back to you. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button. It really does help boost the video with the YouTube algorithm. And also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier patrons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bonbon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.